From Acres USA, you are listening to the Acres USA podcast, a conversational podcast where we'll explore sustainable farming, regenerative practices, and the latest innovations in eco-agriculture with some of your favorite farmers and ranchers. I'm your host, Taylor Henry, the owner and CEO of Acres USA. Welcome to the Acres USA podcast. All right, welcome to our podcast. I'd like to welcome our guest, Mollie Engelhart. Mollie is an entrepreneur, chef, farmer, and advocate for regenerative agriculture. Mollie was the founder and executive chef of a successful farm-to-table restaurant group in Southern California and has now started a farm and restaurant in Texas. Her regenerative farm is dedicated to building soil, health, and sustainable food systems. So in today's episode, we're going to dive into some of her journey, some of the ins and outs of the restaurant business, and why people should raise some food regeneratively coming from a chef. So, Mollie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, I think one of the coolest things about your background is that you are transitioned vegan, and I think one of my favorite things to do. I've had the experience probably 3 or 4 times where I've brought a vegan out to our farm and we've walked through the pasture, we've watched the cattle, and being able to explain to them the difference in this type of protein production versus what they're used to, and probably relating to a lot of the reasons why they became vegan. And I've successfully transitioned a couple vegans themselves into eating our meat. So what's some of your background on that, and what led you to moving away from the vegan world?
So I was raised vegetarian. I grew up on a farm in upstate New York. We had mostly apples, and then we raised dairy calves until they got made, raised them up until they went to a feedlot, basically a temporary for the dairy industry in upstate New York. And my mom was a vegetarian. She read a book about the animal agriculture industry. And I want to say, the animal agriculture is terrible and abusive in many ways. And so I don't fault anybody who looks at a factory farm situation and says, like, I don't want that in my food production. And so I think a lot of people go to vegan and vegetarian as like my mother did. She's read a book and was like, okay, I'm done. I'm cool on that. And I was raised vegetarian. Or I always say I was raised vegan except butter, because my mom one time tried to make us cookies, and the margarine, she left it in the oven with the pilot light. She was trying to get it soft, and then she forgot, and she didn't end up making cookies. She just got distracted, mothering, farming, animals, whatever, and she just got distracted. And the next morning, somehow that margarine had turned into a plastic sheet in the oven. It was like fully plastic. It was no longer meltable. It was no longer an edible thing. It was like a plastic sheet on the sheet pan. And she said, oh my goodness, like, I'm never going to feed my kids margarine ever again. So we were raised vegan because she didn't want to support the industry, and she didn't want to feed us margarine. So we ate butter. So that is how I was just raised. We grew a ton of our food. My parents were homesteaders, and I was just in that world. I wasn't didactic in my veganism. I just was. And then when I went to college, I became a vegetarian, mostly because the lunch program there wasn't a vegan option. It's like veggie burgers with cheese and stuff like that. So I ended up eating cheese and yogurt and stuff in my college years. I couldn't drink milk because I never had it when I was a baby. And so I just couldn't digest it. And then my dad and Woody Harrelson were on this like crazy, my parents, my aunt, my uncle, my dad, and my mom have been friends with Woody and Laura, and they were on the raw food like thing. And I was always into cooking. And so I started playing with making raw ice cream out of nuts when Dad and Woody were on this raw food challenge, how long they could go with raw food. So I started making this like chocolate ice cream that was essentially cashews and cacao. And I made a really delicious dessert product. I wouldn't call it ice cream at this point in my life, but a really delicious frozen custard product. And I started a little ice cream shop, and it was like kind of the start. And then obviously a vegan nut-based ice cream was a really narrow market, and I went into and then I opened a restaurant to have a broader market and all of that. So the restaurant became wildly successful. I mean, I can't be more grateful to God and the Los Angeles community. It was really hard for many years, but then just really crushed it for many years as well. 7, 8 years of year over year growth in a restaurant in Los Angeles is like, and at 5 locations, blah, 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 blah. So sometime in 2013, my brother goes and hears Graham Saint talk in New Zealand or Australia, and he comes back totally lit up. And he's like, I'm going to start a soil nonprofit. Soil is the answer. And I'm kind of, I would call myself like your average, upper middle class liberal environmentalist. I'm driving a Lexus hybrid and I'm taking my grocery store bags and I'm, using oat milk in my latte. And I'm saying, no, thank you. I don't need a straw. I just drink out of the side of my cup because I'm a good person. But mostly I'm just feeling kind of apathetic. Like, oh, we're all just going to burn up and die and we're destroying the planet. We're a plague on the planet. So that's like, and I'm running my restaurants and my life is good. I have enough money. Everything is good. And I listened to Graham Saint's TED Talk because my brother was so inspired. And it like 7 minutes or 12, whatever it is, like shifts my whole view, like about carbon, about methane, about food production, about food waste, about how like everybody's screaming about cow farts and they don't even really fart. It's really burps. But anyways, and everybody's screaming about that. And I'm looking, he's talking about food waste. And I go, oh my goodness, I'm literally throwing at all these restaurants, how much food waste am I throwing? And I get totally inspired about composting all my food waste, which is something I knew. Like I grew up on a farm, we composted, right? But I guess I had it like put it all together about like putrefying in the landfill, making methane, or being broken down into humus and causing beneficial for the microbes. I guess I hadn't really like measured that in my mind or whatever, because everything that you see is like carbon, 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 carbon. So I just was like super inspired. But I didn't see it financially. I didn't have like enough money to like buy a farm because, in this day and age, that's like millions and millions. So I was like, what? I'm just like coming out of the kitchen to every guest in the restaurant. Like, you should buy a farm. I will bring all this. You'll have so much compost. You won't even know it. We can have a box truck and I'll just take it. It's going to be awesome. We'll like sterilize the buckets and bring them back and fill them. Like I have a whole plan I've made. Right. And it's like the coach of the Clippers. It's Courtney Love. It's whoever, like just any rich person that came into the restaurant and they're just staring at me like, well, the buffalo cauliflower is delicious. Thank you. We're having a conversation here. Right. So I realized I'm not going to convince any person to do it. So I just start looking for some land that I can get owner finance. And because my husband is undocumented still and we're in the process, but there's no way we can get a bank loan. And I find that and I start doing regenerative agriculture and I'm so inspired and I'm still a vegan and I'm like, I'm going to have this beautiful vegan farm. It's going to be like Animal Acres or whatever these like animal rescues are, you've seen them like that happen that there is, but these are like so dumb because you go look at them and there's animals in pens living pretty mediocre lives and they're compost
Like a zoo.
like a zoo, and their compost is being sent to the landfill. So it's like, I always was like, I used to even try to talk to the Gene, what is his name, from there's an animal thing like that in Palmdale near my farm in California. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you have all this compost. You should be growing food. Like, you guys are putting it into a dumpster. It's going to the landfill. Like, you got all these horses and cows and you got all this grant money. Like, let's grow some food. Let's grow some soil. Let's de-desert. You're in the middle of the desert right here. Let's like de-desertify this. It could be crazy great. And oh, that's not really our mission, blah, blah, blah. Our mission is for people to see animals and connect with them. Great. Okay. So I'm like, I can do this. I'm going to have animals. They're going to be rescued animals and we're going to regenerate. Like, I'm totally like inspired about it. Right. But low key, I'm also pro-life. Right. So I'm not sure that I'm into like fixing all the animals. I'm not sure that I'm into like, I don't even know. So I'm like, oh, it's going to be nature. Okay. So one thing leads to another. And there was 3 major events that had me realize like that veganism is literally just an illusion that makes you feel good. And I'm not saying that there isn't like times to maybe go on a full plant-based cleanse for some reason. I'm not diminishing. So I know a guy who cured his cancer going on like green juice for like, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as a lifelong choice, it's not a more moral choice. And I came to this conclusion through farming and trying to have this. I first found out pretty early on that these animal rescues will not take any more animals. Like the economics, they just can't take any more animals. So it's not a solution for animals that are in the factory farming system. There is no solution there, right? That's the first thing I realized. Then I had a bunch of ducks. They're having babies. Of course, half the babies are boys. That's how life works. And then I wanted some khaki Campbells because they were supposed to be better at getting the snails off, and these rudder ducks that are taller to get the snails off of the citrus and the avocados. I buy them, I raise them up. They're beautiful. The rudders and the khaki Campbells, they're all beige. They're just so beautiful. And we had them in a big, stock tank behind the house, and they were ready to go in the orchard with the other ducks. And the very first day, the male ducks raped 19 female ducks to death within hours of me putting them out in the orchard. And I was completely like, someone do something about those male ducks. Like when I had been like, no culling, no, we're just gonna let nature happen. Like, okay, well, in nature, there wouldn't just be like buckets of spent grain from the brewery getting dumped on the ground every day. And so the male ducks would chase the other male ducks off because they were protecting their food source. And then the female ducks would be allowed to stay and mate. And that's how it would go. Not just me dumping spent grain on the ground every day in a different part of the orchard to spread the fertility around. That's not how it works. And so I call my dad. I'm crying. He goes, "Yeah, well, that's enough to bring a vegan to her knees." Like I have like all these pictures of these ducks on my Instagram. My kids have been raising them for 8-10 weeks. You know how ducks go from so cute to so ugly to beautiful again. So I'm like devastated. And then a neighbor's dog kills my entire flock of sheep. And I have these really expensive baby doll. I have these really expensive baby doll sheep that are for the vineyard and the hop yard. And we were grazing them on a neighbor's orchard. And inside, they had a housing at nighttime, and two German shepherds dug in, killed every single sheep, and then we come find it in the morning, and I'm just like upset, crying, vegan mindset, like death, it's so bad. And uh my husband, totally different than me. He's indigenous from Mexico, hunted for all of his food growing up, no grocery store, no road to the town he was in until 1991. So fully sovereign in your food. Maybe you go get a big bag of rice once, whatever, on horseback so often, right? But fully growing corn, beans, hard squash, and then dried fish, pork fat, and turtle eggs was the foundation of the diet, and then herbs and whatever from the forest. And so he looks at me and he's like, "Why are you stop fucking crying? Go get a gun. There's two sheep that are still alive, and he's like, call people. We don't have room in the freezer for all these sheep." And he just starts, he's like, "That one's bad, that one's bad, that one's bloated, this one's good, this one's good." And he's just separating them in a bucket of a tractor. And he just starts stringing up sheep, gutting them, cutting them up. And I'm calling all the people in my neighborhood, and people are like, "Oh, trauma. No, I don't want any meat with trauma in it." And I'm like, do people think like the transport to a facility to be harvested is somehow like this is like a spa vacation? Because it's like totally natural for a predator to kill a prey animal, but whatever. Okay. So, but all the Latino community is like showing up, and we're handing out veganese buckets from the restaurant of lamb, bucket after bucket after bucket. And from whenever 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning when we discovered the situation until 10:30 at night, my husband was harvesting sheep. He actually couldn't eat that sheep for like a couple of weeks because he said it was just like the smell of it, that like everything, the trauma, the like the stress of it all. It took him a minute to want to eat any of it. But I remember thinking like I would have just dumped them all in the compost pile, buried them in the compost pile. And he just like jumped into action and made sure that hundreds of people ate. I mean, family after family came and picked up buckets of meat. And I thought to myself, well, that meat is way better than lentils that was grown with blood meal and bone meal and chicken poop coming out of the factory farming system. And then I'm thinking, well, if that meat is better than that, why do I have all these animals that I won't let my husband harvest, and then he buys organic grass-fed beef at the store that's probably from New Zealand or from Australia or from wherever? Why is that better? And so that was a big awakening. And the fact that the dog didn't eat any of those. So nature is far more brutal than humanity ever will be. And then the
Yeah.
last one was breastfeeding. I'm breastfeeding my baby and I'm feeding my toddler oat milk, and I'm milking off the 2/4 of my dairy cow that the calf doesn't drink. And I'm thinking, if my breast milk is perfect gold, God's medicine, why is Una's causing cancer? That can't be possible. It can't be that Una's milk causes cancer and mine is perfect. That is like the craziest. And then you think, oh well, it's another species. Well, I've seen my dogs breastfeed a kitten. I've seen, that's not. I've seen a pig breastfeed a puppy. Like I don't actually think that that's true. That interspecies never have another species milk. I think in survival situations it happens, and I've seen it happen. So that was my final. And then so then my brain just clicked like, wait, why I've been totally propagandized to believe that meat and dairy causes cancer and the vegan diet is healthful for the planet. Yet, oh, and then I got some fertilizer that totally killed a bunch of plants, not because I can't do the math on NPK, but and then I called them and they said, yes, there was so much glyphosate in this organic fertilizer that on accident from feed and whatever. And I realized, wait, organic fertilizer is just poop out of the consolidated feedlot system. So it's not organic at all. So having animals on a farm and having it all integrated. And so in being connected to nature and farming, I realized that veganism is a lie. I can choose to not eat meat on my plate, but I must recognize there's just as much death on my plate as anyone else's plate, and that it really comes down to conscious eating. And it's not about what you're eating. Each body is going to be different and have different needs and similar needs. And you have to decide that for yourself. But you have to decide to eat from a conscious system, from a local system, and from a system that cares about the whole. And that's what matters, not what you're putting on your plate. And that's when I
Yeah.
made the transition. That was a long answer. Sorry, sir.
No, that's fine. That's a very interesting story. How many restaurants did you have at that point that were, because you were marketing vegan only, right?
Yeah, we were vegan only. I had
So
four. So that was,
what was the process, and like, I guess, how long did it take you to actually, you obviously started eating it yourself, but how long did it take you to start
I
rebranding
still don't eat
and
meat.
changing your menu?
I still don't eat meat.
Oh, you didn't. Oh, really?
I haven't got there. I think about it. I want to, but I have never eaten meat, right? And so I eat dairy. I just did 18-day milk fast, and then I'm doing a monthly 7-day. I read a bunch about female fasting, and that really you only want to do it in the first 7 days of your cycle because otherwise it messes with your hormones. But so I've been doing milk and raw yogurt fast, which has been super great. All inflammation in my body. I lost a ton of weight, and I feel great. And I had 4 babies in my 40s and late 30s. And so I had a hard time losing that weight. And I didn't actually be bothered that much. I felt healthy. I worked actively on the farm every day. It wasn't, but when I transitioned the restaurants to meat, they were like, oh, well, that's why she's so fat and she's aging poorly and she's so ugly. And I tried to
So
not
who
let
was
it
saying
bother
this
me.
to you? Like you had a group of, like consistent customers that were voicing these things, or
Oh yeah, everywhere on the internet, on there was YouTube, there was whole like hour-long YouTube specials about like how Chef Mollie has obviously been eating meat a long time and look how fat and how she's aging poorly. Not like she had from 37 to 45 I had 4 children. and that like is like a lot to give. And I've been breastfeeding for 10, like my son, or I guess from, yeah, 46, 36 to 46. I'm 46 right now. Yeah, I've been breastfeeding for 10 years consecutively. My son is 10, and I'm not breastfeeding my 10-year-old. Obviously, I'm breastfeeding my 18-month-old, just for the record for anybody out there. Like, but it takes something to breastfeed for 10 years. It takes something to sleep
Yeah.
with a child every single night for 10 years, like how much sleep you're getting. So I'm not aging like Claudia Schiffer. Great. I farm. I work in a hot restaurant. Like I breastfeed every night. Like my life is not. I don't get facials. I don't get my hair done. Like I don't know what you want me to do. But anyways, it did bother me a little bit. So I did the raw milk fast and first to lose weight, and then because I felt a lot better, I've continued doing it a little bit every month for 7 days, and I feel great. But and I do bone broth, and we have tallow only in our fryer in the restaurant, so I'm not a vegetarian, I would say, because those things, but I haven't like eaten a hamburger or, and my husband,
You haven't just got into a nice ribeye or
no, even like the other day, my husband was cooking venison steaks, and he was like, everybody was going crazy about it, how good they were. And I was like, and he was like, you don't just like, and he was like showing me, and I was like, all I can see is like the muscle, and like, no, I can't. I was like, I want it, but I feel like I could be much skinnier if I could be on the carnivore diet. Um, but anyway, so, but my kids, 3 of my 4 kids eat meat. Um, and so to answer your question, how long was it? At that time I came to the realization was in 2019. And well, not, I mean, I started the realization in 2013, then I get a farm, then da 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 da, right? It takes time. So 2019, I want to switch the restaurants, but we get an offer for 25 to 31 million dollars for my restaurant. And I think, okay, well, I can retire now, just do regenerative farming, focus on that, and raise my children, be a stay-at-home farming mom. And this sounds amazing. So let me just let the vegan concept go off into the night on its own. And it's something I did. And lots of people build businesses and move on to something else. Well, and I had to meet all these specific measurable points along the way, and in order to get to, um, between 25 and 31 million. So Q4 of 2019, I'm out of the park. Best Q4 we've ever had. I exceed the marks that I need to get to. Q1 of 2020, out of the park. Best quarter ever. Trending. One of my restaurants was trending to do like 8 million and change. Could have been 9 million, depending on how the summer went. And then you know what happened? This crazy thing happened
I
in 20.
do remember that time
They
frame, I think.
closed down all of California, all indoor dining for 2.5 years. And they robbed me of the 10
That's how long it lasted?
years. No indoor.
2.5 years.
Yes, sir.
That's crazy.
I mean, they did indoor dining, then no indoor dining, then outdoor dining only, then no outdoor dining only. It was all like the numbers, the numbers. If you aren't, if you think eating outside at a restaurant, you're a Trump supporter, you're an asshole. Like, and that was part my awakening from like fully exiting the Democratic Party, is when that was happening and they're closing us down. I'm trying to like get a sense like what is going on. Like this has never happened before, where they're just telling you can't let people come into your restaurant. And I'm reading, and then I'm looking, and then I am trying. And my brother-in-law from my first marriage, Trevor, is like trying. He works there too. He starts reading the whole transcripts that Trump is saying every day, and I realize that literally what the news is doing is taking the one mistake he made or the flub, and then just putting that, and there's no other information. And I was only really like trying to read the transcripts because I'm like trying to get the actual information. Like, I don't care if Trump said if you drink bleach, like, I don't understand. But I also knew that drink bleach thing. My mom's been big on MMS for like ever. And you can't even buy MMS except for water purification in the United States anymore. But I know that MMS cures tons of things, malaria and, cancer. And there's been stories. And I know I had a goat that was like ill, and we were going to put her down. And I did a MMS thing that I found on the internet for goats, cured her. She died years later in childbirth. But I mean, this like no vet, we had already gone through all this thing, no vet could fix this goat. She just like in forever runny nose and diarrhea, and there was nothing to be done about it. We tried everything, and then MMS it fixed it. And MMS is the chemical compound salt from bleach activated with um, citric acid instead of whatever acid they use in bleach. So it's a different compound. And so when Trump was saying, is there something that's like bleach, but it's like different that you can ingest? I think that would kill the virus if bleach kills the virus on a surface. I knew what he was talking about. And so I all of a sudden was like, maybe I've been lied to. And then everything that, yeah. And so that is how, and so people say, oh, you changed to meat for money. Well, I changed to meat. I actually stayed vegan for money. And then that didn't work out. And so before closing my last two restaurants, I lost several restaurants. So I had four restaurants at that time. And then we closed one and opened like a to-go kitchen, like a, I don't know what the, like a ghost kitchen during the pandemic, and then we closed another one during the pandemic. So in total, I've closed five restaurants, including the ghost kitchen, over the last 5 years. And instead of getting 25 to 31 million, I'm like $1 million in debt. Um, and so the truth is, I did not switch to meat for money. I thought it would not have integrity. I was already losing my businesses. I was already deep in debt. I thought it would not have integrity to not at least try to do something that I thought had integrity, not at least try to tell the truth and have integrity with my own moral standards. And also not to have, I didn't want to just start this restaurant in Texas serving meat and be like, still like on this weird, like, maybe I don't tag my own self and like I try to see, like, I just, I wanted to be like fully like, this is who I am. I'm a cattle farmer. I have a pork operation, I have a lamb operation, and I have a goat operation, and I'm growing meat to feed people and sequester carbon, grow soil microbes, and grow vegetarian food as well with that fertility. And that's what I'm doing. And if you can't see that that's a benefit, then you're not my people. So I just came out and did it and said it. And it went crazy viral. I was on everywhere from People Magazine to the Daily Mail to the Yahoo News to Fox News, but it didn't translate into customers coming into the restaurant. It was more just like an anecdotal story, the vegan. And then again, when I closed, same thing, went viral, went crazy.
Hey, eco farmers. This is Taylor Henry with Acres U.S.A. I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoy interviewing these folks. If you're serious about regenerative agriculture, I've got an incredible resource you need to check out, the Acres U.S.A. membership. You farm in the physical world, and you deserve a physical printed magazine to match. Since 1971, Acres U.S.A. magazine has been the leading voice in ecological agriculture, delivering the best insights from regenerative farmers, agronomists, and researchers to help you farm profitably without toxic chemicals. Our membership included physical and digital copies of the magazine each month of the year, which has always been a standard for Acres USA, but we wanted to over-deliver on content. When I acquired this business, I was happy to find that we had years of audio files from presentations at our annual EcoA conference. And guess what? They were hiding. Well, not anymore. We developed this membership portal that gives you access to the recordings from farmers like Gabe Brown, Gary Zimmer, Joel Salatin, and Mark Shepard. We also include recordings of private events. Finally, if you are like me and you like listening to content, we are now producing a membership-only podcast of each issue of the magazine, so you can consume each article while you're out in the field. To make things even sweeter, you'll get discounts on books, workshops, and events to keep expanding your knowledge. So are you ready to take your farming to the next level? Join today for a ridiculously low price at eco-farming.com or see details in the notes. What what happened to the people that were coming to your restaurant was more of a lunch dinner? Where did those people end up going? Like, where were they getting their food? Because I saw, you think some restaurants, 2.5 years is crazy. The fact that you got shut down that long, we didn't experience anything like that in Wisconsin. But so I saw some people where it's almost like they got leaner because they offered the carry out option. They didn't have as many people working. They
I mean,
would do
we
the
did all
dine-in
that.
option.
We got leaner, but when you're
But was it
but when
like
your rent is
obviously
40
like
grand.
you make money on like drinks and the whole process of someone sitting down and eating a meal or
Well, you know how much the to go, if you're ordering through the third party apps, they're taking 25 to 30%. A
yeah,
restaurant doing its best is only profiting 10%. So how make that math?
yeah,
And the to go business, we usually see it as a promotion. It's like we know that they're going to come back and dine in the restaurant at some point because our food is good.
right.
And
Yeah,
uh, we got leader, yeah, we did all that, but 5,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, 40,000,
right.
20,000 in rent. There's other factors. It's not just that. So, California has progressively made laws that are more in the favor of the employee than the employer when it comes to workers' comp. So company after company after company pulled themselves out, pulled themselves out, pulled themselves out. So that I start having less employees, but I mean $500,000 in workers' comp a year with no major accidents. And $500,000 for workers' comp, like wrap your head around that. And then, it's just like you look at how many permits you need. There's so many ways their taxation that they're taxing us. And then in California, they literally have a business of making some part of your business illegal and then making you pay for it. So, they the outdoor patio for COVID, then they say like, okay, we don't, because you have no indoor dining, we're going to give you these parking spaces, but the parking spaces are only allowed to have tables and chairs, no umbrellas, no heaters, and then you get fined for the umbrellas and heaters. But like by nature, if you put out tables and chairs certain times of the year, you're going to need umbrellas and heaters. Like it's just obvious to anybody in the hospitality industry. And so that makes no sense. And then once COVID was over, and if we wanted to keep that seating that we invested thousands and thousands of dollars on, then you have to buy a permit for that. And then every outdoor seat on the sidewalk, then you had to pay a sewer, wastewater permit for it. And I'm like, I never understood that. Like, explain to me, if someone's eating in my restaurant or in the apartment building upstairs, so if they poop in their apartment upstairs, it's not getting taxed. But if they poop in my restaurant, like because I'm adding extra poop to the system, like I just can't. I don't really see that. I don't see why I should pay a wastewater fee for every seat in the restaurant. Like I just don't get it. Like if they poop at their house or they poop at my restaurant, like what? I don't know. I don't see how it's more. It's not adding more.
What's your guess of restaurants in your area that left that went under similar to you? Is it like 70% of them?
I think it's like 50% or more. Uh,
And what do you think the goal is? Why do they make it difficult to transact business? Like what do you think their end goal is? Like what happened to your restaurants that you've closed? Did another restaurant move in?
no,
They turn them into housing?
they're
They're just
empty.
empty.
One of my restaurants, no, okay, let me tell the truth. One restaurant, we sold it to someone, they bought the furniture and fixtures, and that guy, I believe, is still open. I haven't checked it out. One restaurant that I left because the landlord, I wasn't even trying to close my first restaurant. I was trying to stay open, and it was during the pandemic. And they wanted me to sign a personal guarantee for a 10-year extension on my lease, and they wanted to raise the rent. And I was literally like, I'm losing money right now. I can't sign a personal guarantee if you want me to stay in there. He's since had 2 or 3 restaurants turn over since me, and I was there for 10 years, paid the rent on time every single month. He would have been better off probably keeping me, but I don't know. And then the cloud kitchen was totally full when we moved in. We had to wait for a space actually, and when we moved out, there was only 4 restaurants in the whole, including Starbucks, moved out the cloud kitchen. So that, and then my restaurant in Echo Park is vacant, and we tried for almost 7 months because with the landlord, and I ended up giving the landlord $500,000, the whole brewery, because I owed him 100 and something thousand in rent, but in order to not be sued and everything like that. And the landlord in Pasadena, I don't even know. They're probably going to try to sue me. I don't know. But they're both empty. And so to me, and here's the thing, let's say the vegans won, it's so great. And let's say something moves in there to those spaces. they're going to be buying Purdue chicken from Cisco, and they're going to be buying foreign meat that's just packaged here in the United States. And they're going to be having one vegan option or two vegan options filled with seed oils. How is that better than me there with 70% vegan options and supporting only local farmers? And now I owe, the worst part is I owe farmers. Like I was trying to help, and now I am on payment plans with multiple regenerative farmers that I was trying to help that I literally owe money because my restaurants went out of business and I haven't finished paying all my employees' final paychecks. We cashed out everything out of our retirement account, which is like 100 and something $1,000 to pay final paychecks. Who's winning? Who is winning?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like,
And I'm now
what
in
is?
Texas paying Texas taxes. Why does California, if you look me up, I'm an environmentalist. I'm an organic farmer. I'm a renowned chef. I've had successful businesses in California and paid massive amounts of taxes. Massive amounts of taxes
I'm
for
sure.
years. Just think about a restaurant doing $7 million one location a year. How much sales tax is that? How much employee in payroll taxes is that? How much? I mean, so much taxes. I have never agreed with like, oh, corporations don't pay their fair share of taxes. Like, I'm sorry, that is not true. As propaganda. I encourage you to try to run a corporation and see you're getting unsecured business taxes. You're taxed every year on the equipment inside of your restaurant that you own, that
Yeah.
you paid for, that you paid taxes on the money that you paid to buy the equipment. You paid sales tax when you bought the equipment. You put the equipment inside of a building that's your business, and then you pay unsecured property taxes every year based on an estimate that the government thinks that is worth. No, corporations pay tons of taxes. And so I'm there. I have 350 employees. I'm paying taxes, sales tax, in property taxes, all the fees, all the permits, all the everything, and payroll taxes and income taxes. Why do you not want me? Why did you make my life so hard? If you're me and you have, okay, I have a beautiful farm in the best weather in the country. Best, I don't care what anybody says, best weather in the country.
Oh, Wisconsin's
Best,
pretty nice.
what? Best soil,
Wisconsin's pretty nice.
best soil in the country. And I'm on live water, last undammed river in Southern California. Organic, regenerative, certified avocados and citrus and row crops. Regenerative farm. What makes me sell that and leave and go to Texas Hill Country? What?
Oh, it seems probably the way the government
Yeah.
runs things.
Yeah.
So, are you happy with your move to Texas? Does it feel like you have more sovereignty and freedom to run businesses like this?
Yeah. People aren't quite as awake around food. So there's a learning curve with the locals. But yeah,
What town are you in,
I'm in
or how close?
Bandera, just outside of San Antonio.
Okay.
Um,
Um.
but yes, I love the ability to move, the ability to do things, the lack of government restricting you from doing things.
Yeah.
The only thing, I mean, I think that Texas has it wrong on raw milk. I think that, uh, yeah, I think Texas has it wrong on a few things, but raw milk is up there. I also think their property tax rules are messed up. Like if if you have an ag exemption, but then you have a barn, the barn is an improvement, and they take that acre out of agriculture exemption. So like they just raised my taxes like a whole lot because the farm store is not an agricultural. And so I think everywhere has their way places that they could improve. Like to me, you need barns and you need a farm store. You need like I think And I also think that there should be some space for agrotourism that doesn't drive your taxes. $11,000 in 1 year, my taxes went up because they just decided
Yeah.
certain things were not agricultural.
So when did you buy the Texas farm? Were you able to sell your California farm and then use those
I
funds
had
to go get this
both.
Texas farm, or
No, I had
you had
both
both
at the
before?
same time for a little while. I thought I was getting $21 million or 25.
You made some choices before you got that money.
Yeah, I'm known for that.
Well,
My success
it can
formula is
be.
that I don't wait for to see how things are going to work out. I just go do it. I feel like
Yeah.
most people in life are like waste so much time thinking about how something is going to go, and however much planning you do, I don't care how meticulous you are about planning, it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go.
Yeah.
100%. That's the only thing you know. And so people who spend so much time wanting to know how it's going to go, it's like people trying to ask me like, what is it like to have a baby? Yeah, you'll find out. And you won't remember
Yeah.
afterwards. So don't worry. Like the pain thing, it's not that big of a deal. You'll want to have another baby in like 6 months. Don't worry about it. What is it like to take mushrooms or ayahuasca? Like you can't, these are things you cannot explain. Anything in life. What is it like to start a business? What is the most important? Just start. Just fuck. Just sorry to swear. Just start. Like I find
You're
that
right.
people are so in their own way. And so I've never been in my own way. I will take the good, the bad, and the ugly. I will throw my hat over the fence and figure out how to fly on the way down.
Yeah, you almost. I would agree with that. I mean, entrepreneurship. You're almost better off just hurrying up and finding the first obstacle instead of worrying about what it's going to be.
Yeah, the obstacles, believe me, you are going to
Because they're
have.
going to happen. It's the biggest thing with people starting regenerative farms too. Is it's they overthink things, and it's like something bad is going to happen. You kind of just have to get into it and figure out
For
what it is, and
sure. I
hopefully
mean,
you're smaller scale when it does.
yeah. I mean, I just had a thing. We don't vaccinate our cows. We don't have black leg in California. I don't know what black leg. I didn't know anything about black leg. It's not a thing in California. And all of a sudden, a bunch of my calves are on the ground dead. Okay, well, I'm not big on vaccines, but maybe this black leg thing should be vaccinated for. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I don't. You learn. Could I have done like a ton of research about moving cows from California to Texas? But yeah, probably I could have done a better job about that. But I was moving 33 semis, trucks of restaurants and farms, and it was a lot. And so, yeah, some things got missed, like the black leg vaccine.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it is kind of appears. You should listen to our podcast we just did with Will Winter. He believes that it is preventable without vaccines.
He believes it is
But
preventable.
yeah,
I want
because usually that's kind of how I go, where that'd be the only thing that we would give our cattle. But he believes that it is preventable with some other, being proactive and making sure that they're consuming, they're actually digesting the food properly. He's big on apple cider vinegar and mineralizing cattle, but yeah,
Well,
that's
I'm
like the only thing we
interested to
listen
know
to.
about that, and because I haven't even, I actually haven't even vaccinated the next round of babies here because it's also only like in certain conditions when it's warm and it gets cold and then it gets rain and then like there's these set of conditions that sets it off too.
Yeah, and if you ever listen to someone like Greg Judy, I think he went 18 years without any sort of vaccinations, and he got hit with a bad case of it 1 year, and it's changed the way he looks at it. That's the only thing he gives his livestock now. So I don't think that's a very common one, but there's also there's so many of them that you can choose from to find that one that is just blackleg. I think it's a fair thing to do, but
Yeah, and
I also
I mean, I saw this thing the other day on somebody was posting on Instagram like, I'm so disappointed because it seems like Costco's meat is organic meat is vaccinated. And I was literally like, I'm so confused. This person thinks that there's some organic meat in a big box store somewhere that's not vaccinated. And they point to like Harris Ranch's organic, like whatever they say on their website about it. And it literally just says like we keep good animal cleanliness, blah blah blah, and vaccines. Like, but I'm like, yeah, almost every single place. Like, if you want fully unvaccinated meat, you're gonna have to know the farmer, and you're gonna have to know that that's true. And mostly that's true here on our farm, with the exception of the calves last year that were not dead from blackleg. I vaccinated them, but for blackleg, and I didn't do the 3-in-1. I just did the blackleg by itself. But
Yeah.
all that to say, and I vaccinated my dairy cows in California for brucellosis because it's the law, and you can get put in jail if you're selling milk that or in a herd share and not that. So I didn't want to do that. But here, you just have to test for brucellosis once a year, and you don't need to vaccinate. But if you're bringing a cow into Texas, it needs to be vaccinated for brucellosis. But once it's here, you just need to test. I literally couldn't, and I thought, because I'm raising cattle in California, you have to. So I called everywhere, like, hey, I need a brucellosis vaccines. I have a bunch of calves that are between, three. It has to happen after 3 months and before 9 months. And they were like, oh, we don't. We don't do that here in Texas. And I was like, oh, okay. So, it's different everywhere, and rules are different. Health department codes are different. Like, things are different everywhere. So people that I thought it was funny that this guy literally thought that he was like, I'm so disappointed that Costco's organic beef has vaccines. And I was thinking to myself, all organic beef has vaccines pretty much, with the exception of a few. And I
Majority.
call what the majority, yeah.
I would say.
And at the 98, 9 percentile. And the same
Yeah.
with chickens. Like, I don't vaccinate my chickens, but for sure, most people are getting chickens with meeks and whatever like that. So I don't know, like, for this idea that they were surprised that organic, and I guess what it is people are just highly disconnected from their food supply, and highly disconnected from what it is to farm, and that's how we can have these illusions like veganism. Like, we live in a world where we are so disconnected from nature that we can tell lies that are so obviously disproved by nature. And I mean, here's the thing, like, I can use this as a controversial thing I'm going to say is, like, I'm pro anybody living their pro adults living their life however they want to live their life. I have no judgment. People should live their life. People who are adults should live their life however they want to live your life. But my daughter the other day says to me, Mom, you know what's really interesting? I said, what? She said, when the girl cows jump on each other, nothing happens. But when you put Bubba in the orchard, in the pasture, and he jumps on everybody, then the babies come. And I was like, yeah, because it takes a boy and a girl to make a baby. And she was like, so two girls jumping does not make a baby. Yes, two girls jumping. Now that is just a factual thing that a 7-year-old observed watching nature. Now that is actually like a controversial statement in our culture, to say that only a boy and a girl can make a baby. But that's like literally just factually true, not dismantling anybody's identity or whatever. I'm just saying, like, nature doesn't lie. And so the closer we are to nature, and that's how I became so painfully aware that the vegan identity is a lie, because there's no way to, maybe some places in the world, like a tropical environment, but there's almost no way for somebody to just like homestead and grow all their own vegan food and not have inputs from somewhere else. Now, I could fully feed my family from my ranch without inputs from outside, besides maybe salt, and if that's what it came down to, if that's what I needed to do. That is not possible here in Texas or in California. I could not produce enough calories for calories in, calories out to feed my family vegan. I mean, maybe if we just ate corn tortillas, a lot of corn tortillas, that it could be possible. But it's just not, it's not sustainable for the whole planet, to think that the whole planet can just eat lentils and beans and corn and row crops, and that we can regenerate the soil and that we can have a better future. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some vegan diet that could regenerate, like if everybody just ate kelp. I don't know. There might be something, but like the way we're doing it, it's not sustainable. And we want to go beyond sustainable. We need to reverse what's literally happening. And
What's in the alternative meat alternatives?
pea protein
When people
and a special yeast that's a genetically modified yeast that's grown. Nutritional yeast is also in a lot of it. Food, different dyes, uh, different other kinds of
natural flavors.
natural flavors, uh, texturized soy protein, uh, isolates, some isolates of different things, pea isolates, soy isolates. Uh,
So are you seeing any of those alternative meat products? Can they even be listed as organic?
No, I don't think so. Not the ones like that. There's a few, like the only organic kind of veggie burgers or anything like that is more like what I would enjoy to eat. Is just like we never served any of that fake meat at my restaurant. Just for clarity, I've never. So when we say like I left the left or I left the vegan world or I've always been pro farm to table, pro whole foods, and no processed food. So that being said, I never served Impossible or Beyond Meat or anything like that. I never served any of those things in my restaurants. We did serve tofu and we did serve tempeh, but those are like traditional old foods from the Orient, and I don't see them the same as uh, I don't see tofu and I don't see tempeh as the same as these new fake meats. Because you could go to a Korean restaurant right now and they will serve you beef and tofu in the same soup. It's like totally normal. Like it's just a part of the old diet from the Orient. I don't think it is a fake meat. I don't think it's the same thing. And
So you don't eat.
I can make tofu in my kitchen. I cannot make an Impossible Burger in my kitchen. Tofu has
Yeah.
one ingredient. What were you
So
saying?
you don't eat the meat, but do you cook the meat?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what is some of the things that you notice? What's different about, you mentioned a place like Cisco or something. So as a restaurant, you obviously have these options with these marketers or aggregates
I've
of
never
food.
cooked any of that kind of meat. I've never, I don't believe in supporting factory farming. I don't believe in that. I don't feed that food to my family and I don't feed that food to my customers. I never have. Um,
Never just for fun. If you kicked one, you just cooked them side by side to see the difference.
no, I never have. I
Yeah.
can, but yeah, we're like, I almost never leave the ranch. That's going to sound crazy, but like, I have my house here, I have my children, my family, I have a restaurant here. I have this house. This is one of the rental units that's on the ranch. Like, I don't ever almost go anywhere. I go to the farmer's market on Tuesday afternoons to drop off CSA boxes. And then I sometimes take my kids to get a treat at a like a regular restaurant or whatever on Tuesday. But I almost never leave the ranch anymore, to tell the truth. And we grow so much of our own food, and then we have an Azure standard drop off here on the ranch. We're the community pickup for Azure, and I rarely interface with these other kinds of foods.
Yeah. Well, I was going to be curious on just the texture and the way it cooks and things like that. But hey there. Did you attend our EcoEgg conference this year in Madison, Wisconsin? Well, if you didn't, or if you did, we've got the recordings now available. Get on-demand access to every session with the EcoEgg recordings. Learn directly from the pioneers of soil health, livestock integration, and profitable regenerative systems, all at your own pace. Speakers include Gabe Brown, Alan Williams, John Kempf, Joel Salatin, and a lot more. We also have additional products that include the full-day workshops done by Matt Powers, John Kempf, Nigel Palmer, Jordan Green, Mark Shepard, and Austin Unruh. These workshops are in depth and will help you dig deep on the presenters' topics. Grab your recordings now at conference.eco-ag.com/24 recordings or find the link in the notes. Because the best investment you can make is in your own knowledge. Now back to the show.
Yeah, sorry,
Let's
I don't have that information for you, but I think it matters, and I think that people should think about that it's not the same thing. And I don't have the answer about how they cook, but everything is energy in this whole universe, and the energy that you're putting into your body is it matters. And I would say that my cow that lived on grass and had a good life and was loved and got to be with its mom and got to, all the things is better energy than a chicken that was just in terrible condition. That it's just obvious that it's a like if you eat suffering, you're taking that energy doesn't go anywhere, right? It just transfers from one place to another. So we're eating that suffering. And recently I got some chickens. It was winter time, and I this guy said he had a bunch of chickens. He lied for sure. When he got here, I knew that it was a lie. And they were a bunch of chickens that came out of a factory farm for sure. And but we were, the chickens I'd bought to be winter layers didn't start laying before the winter. And you know that if they don't start laying before the winter, they will wait until after the winter to start laying. So I had 150 chickens that were new chickens that were supposed to be laying. And my older chickens, they don't lay in the wintertime. So I was like, I'm going to buy some adult chickens that are 1 year old that are still laying. These chickens, and I've bought these chickens one time before where they were definitely out of a factory farm. I still have some of them. I actually feel good about it because takes like a while, but like I would going and checking on them every day. And yesterday, like some of them had actually come outside of the coop and they're like scratching in the ground and like taking a dust bath. Like they've never done this before. Like they have no feathers, their beaks are cut. They look like terrible. And my son's like, I think they still think they're in the factory farm. They won't come out of the coop. They don't know they have 5 acres here of fruit trees they need to be scratching and fertilizing before they come out of dormancy. And I was like, yeah, they definitely don't know that that's what their job is here. And my son's like taking them out of the coop and they're like literally like look crazy. But in a couple months, they're going to be totally normal chickens. And yes, I'm sure I was scammed that they're not really a year old and blah, 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 all the things. But honestly, I'm going to give them a couple of years of a way better life, and they are going to have an actual chicken's life. And I think that that's important. Like I think it's important to live a life that you were meant to live. And I think that if you ever watch a chicken come out of a factory farm and then start to discover pecking for bugs and scratching and taking a dirt bath, it's something. And so I do think we should care about where our food comes from. And I think that we should care about, and I asked the guy, like I said, obviously these are not chickens that you raise, like you said on your ad. And obviously they're not in molt. They just have no feathers because they've been in confinement. And I said, what are you? And he had a whole truck full of chickens. He was dropping off 200 for me. And I said, what are you doing with the rest of these? And he's like, oh, they're going to go get processed. And I was like, they're going to get processed. So literally, they're going to go get. So these chickens that lay eggs every day, and then when they start laying only 3 eggs or 4 eggs a week, they get processed into chicken sausage or chicken whatever, ground chicken. They had no good life of a. They had not. There was no joy in that life. Literally, like nothing good about that life. And we're then eating that, just like a full life of suffering. I always tell people if you can't get organic, you can't get then eat beef because 99% of beef lived the majority of its life on pasture. And so eat beef. If you can't get organic, if you can't get whatever, eat beef because you're taking in less suffering by doing that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with chickens. I did a chicken rescue mission my first year having chickens, and it was amazing to see the way their eggs looked transformed. It didn't take them very long, but once they were able to get out, scratch around, then all of a sudden their yolks, matched what other group of layers matched. It looked like so.
Yeah, I'm
They're
not
good.
mad at doing this. I did it once before in the winter time, and it was a different guy. I thought, well, I'm not going to go to that guy again because I was obviously getting scammed. But then I don't think it's a bad thing to do, because I do think that it doesn't take very long, and you'll see their yolks go from yellow to a darker orange, and they grow their feathers back, and they start to act like chickens. Right now, they don't even know how to perch. They literally don't know how to perch.
Yeah, that's crazy. We had an interesting experiment. We found some, so our layers are struggling right now. So my wife had been buying a couple different versions. So whenever she brings eggs home, I always inspect them. And she bought organic eggs from just down the road from us. And then she went to Aldi and bought pasture raised eggs. And when you opened them up, the Aldi version was bright orange, looked really nice. And then the organic version was, light colored, looked like it came from a sickly chicken. And I'm like, how the heck could Aldi possibly have access to chickens like this? And if you look into it, they are, I'm not saying they're doing this, don't sue me or anything, but there are ways that people are now, I guess, changing the appearance of the eggs by
Yeah,
feeding them certain
feeding
things.
them alfalfa pellets is.
Yeah. One person explained it like they feed them like a snail of some sort. And
Yeah, I've also seen the alfalfa pellets. Like, we've tried doing that, feeding alfalfa pellets in the wintertime when we don't have any greenery around or anything for the chickens.
yeah.
Um, True story, we feed our chickens meat. Um, so everywhere there's waste products, right? And to be in a regenerative system, you want to be using things that are in the waste system. And so one way is we get organic grain from a mill that does organic flour. We feed our pigs that, and some of that goes to our chickens as well. But we have been getting the barrels of meat that would go to get rendered, and we feed it to our chickens, and we move our chickens around to different places. And so it looks disgusting and smells disgusting. We roll out this like dump a barrel, 55-gallon drums of like the rib cages of deer and the rib and heads, a lot of heads of cows. And they eat all of it. They eat the brains, they eat the eyeballs, they eat all of that. And then whatever's left over, I go with my flail mower at its lowest setting, and I flail mow it into the ground. Well, what I'm then creating, and then we plant our gardens into that area. So after we harvest, we bring the chickens in, we dump the meat out, and then we let the chickens eat all of that. Then we move the chickens, and I flail mower that. And what is that? It's blood meal, bone meal, feather meal, and chicken poop. And then we plant our gardens into it. And it's a super high protein for the chickens, and it grows maggots for the chickens. Now, everybody might be like, that is so disgusting. Yeah, it is.
They like them.
It is kind of
that's what
disgusting.
that's what they're meant to eat. That's what they'd be eating in the wild.
Yeah. So that is one thing that we're doing for our chickens. And a lot of
Um,
places have custom cut shops around that they're paying to render those barrels. Therefore, you could probably get it for free.
yeah, for sure. I know that's one thing that we are not doing the full. We're not doing well enough. Where it's hard when you send animals to the processor, either be pigs or cattle, and I know they're just sending so many pieces of that animal to nothing, to a rendering plant or whatever. So we need to do a better job of getting them back. Price.
I'm sometimes fighting. I've sent like so many pigs.
You have to like. You have to like.
They forgot to send me my pork back. They forgot to send me my. They didn't
All
forget.
right, so I'm not the only person. I'm not the only person.
What do you mean you forgot? I don't understand. I sent you 6 pigs and you forgot all of their fat. Like, I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. You didn't forget their fat.
Yeah,
You took their fat to render for lard. And
yeah,
because you already know something, I get these buckets. There's no fat in these buckets, so they're not forgetting the fat into the waste, into the what's getting rendered for soap or whatever. They're not forgetting that fat is turning into lard, and they are getting paid for it, and that's why they forget to give it to you. I also get forgotten the bones. Like, where are my marrow bones? Oh, we forgot to save them for you. Interesting.
yeah. I mean, that's our biggest issue with scaling is I have yet to find a good processor that I trust that has I haven't had those same situations with,
Oh, the whole processing thing is a nightmare. Like they
So
lose your meat. You're getting other
I
people's meat
know,
back. Like it's
man. The one time they smoked someone's pork chops. So like essentially made them like ham. It was a terrible mistake because they were disgusting. And it's like the fresh pork chops were perfectly fine, and the person did not ask for it. So then you, as the farmer, you have to go take that product back and exchange it with the fresh pork chops that we had to sell, and then I had to like force eat this smoked pork chop. It was like so disgusting, and like a raw pork chop would be nice right now. So when we talk about like pricing for restaurants, I think this is one of the issues that are restaurants able to pay enough for regeneratively produce products and still hit their margins and the farmer hit the margin, because our biggest issue is processing, where you can go get meat from, say, like a Cisco place. Well, their processing costs are a tenth or a 20th of what our processing costs are at a small scale. So how do you price these things? Are you seeing, I mean, obviously you guys probably have your own meat that you're putting in your farm to table restaurant, but one of the biggest issues I've had is how does the farmer get a fair price while then the restaurant also makes money?
we have to shift the idea of how much stuff costs. We don't
Yeah.
have a real idea of how much stuff costs. Right now, everybody's complaining eggs are so expensive in the stores right now, right? If I have a dozen eggs, now right now, I mean, my dozen eggs is like got $1,000 of feed into it. Not really, but like because I'm getting so few eggs because it's wintertime. But let's say in the summertime, I have a dozen eggs. I have $7, $6, $5 a feed, depending on what the ratio that I'm feeding at that time into that dozen. That's not the carton. That's not washing it. That's not harvesting it. That's not moving chickens. That's not cleaning chicken shit. Nothing else. Just feed into that carton of food. Now tell me, and now everybody's like, oh my God, eggs are $8 at the store. And I'm like, literally, I have $7 into a carton of eggs and feed. And so that I'm selling my eggs for $10. And now I'm literally like, oh, I guess I can raise my price, because when they were $4, I was selling them for $10. Now can I sell them for $12? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But let me give you another example. Lamb. So sheep are not big, and whether that's technically a lamb or mutton, uh, it's not like the sheep are huge animals, right? And so there's a minimum of $125 kill and disposal for each animal at the place that I process. And then there's $1.10 per package for packaging, weighing, and blah, blah, blah. So if I get 30 pounds of meat off of a lamb, I'm like $5 in packaging and kill and disposal. And you can get grass fed, grass finished lamb at Costco right now for $5. So when I tell you that I sell three tiny little lamb chops, little lollipop lamb chops for $35, and people go, well, I don't know. I mean, how much is that an ounce? And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's how much it costs. We sell a ground lamb for like $23 a pound. Why is it $23 a pound? Well, I don't know, because I only get 30 pounds of meat off an animal that you have to raise up and take care of. And then it's already $5 in processing into it. That's not driving it there. It's not feeding it for years, or a year in a lamb's case. Like, tell me how you're a farmer. How can I compete with New Zealand lamb for $5 a pound if my processing is just $5 a pound on a lamb? But I understand from the processing standpoint, like, does it takes them time to kill a smaller animal or a bigger animal? It takes same bullet, same, a little more less time to skin it, but it's a lot of work. And in some ways it's even maybe harder, more tedious work because it's smaller parts, right? I don't
And the regulation they
the
deal with
regulations.
that drives up.
And then the other thing that's really hard with the processing is you're communicating, you're making cut sheets and da da da. And but sometimes they'll just take your cut sheet like at exactly face value, and then it doesn't make any kind of sense, right? So I said steaks, you can choose steaks, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inches, right? So I chose 1 inch steaks. They cut my tenderloins into 1 inch pieces, but like, so the tenderloin's only like this wide, right? And then it's 1 inch. So I have hundreds of 1 to 2 ounce tenderloins. What do I explain to me under what circumstance I can sell that? And I called them and she said, well, you circled 1 inch steaks. And I said, yep, I did. You're right. You're right. So in the future, if I ever circle 1 inch steaks, can you just leave my tenderloins
That's
whole or halved, please? Like, does that seems like
that's a crazy one. I've never heard that. So you have a bunch of little like circles.
yes.
They probably package two in a package, so someone
One
has
in
to
a
take out like
package. One in a
8. Oh
package.
wow,
I literally will could text you a photo. So we're gonna do baby tenderloin on steamed rice with farm veggies for Valentine's Day. In a 5 course meal, your steak doesn't need to be that big, right? I don't know what I really literally don't know what to do. They're gonna cook quick on the grill. They'll probably be delicious. I will marinate them and make them delicious, but and put like 2 pieces on top of a rice and veggies. Like I'm sure it'll be good. But don't you think that's weird?
yeah, I've never heard that someone's doing
So,
that
but
before. Luckily,
that's
we have
not.
one
But
right
there
here.
is. But when there's a mistake like that, it's not like you said, smoking the smoked pork chops. It's not like you could just go back and say like give like, oh, these shoes don't fit. They have a defect. Give me another shoe. That animal is dead and been cut up, and that is it. They've stolen your fat, and that is it. Like that's it. So I have a lot of thoughts about food. I think we as a society, as the consumer society, have to prioritize resilience over convenience, quality over price. And so I think that we need to shift the way we eat to the eating everything, eating the oxtail, eating the tongue, eating the head, eating everything is the first thing. And I think that we have to prioritize people that are doing the right thing. And now, if you come into my farm store and you just want tenderloin, normally it would be at a premium. If you just want T-bones, that's going to be at a premium. Now, if you buy a box of meat and it's a farmer's choice, I'm going to give you more for your money because you're going to take some rump roast, and you're going to take some T-bones, and you're going to take some sirloin steaks, and you're going to take some ground beef, and you're going to take some oxtail or whatever. It's going to be mixed, right? But if you only want tenderloin, that's all you're going to eat, you're going to pay a premium. And I'm sorry, that's how it has to be because we can't just have freezers and freezers of oso, or what is it called, oso? Like I can't have freezers and freezers and freezers of lamb neck, like just thousands of lamb necks. Like what am I going to do with all that?
Yeah,
I have lamb neck for $8 on the website. It's like $8. It's like so cheap, and it doesn't sell. And if I don't put it into a farmer's choice box, then I just end up with freezers and freezers of oxtail and liver and tongue and neck. And but we just only want to eat what we want to eat.
sirloin steaks. Those are always tough to sell.
Yeah.
Not many people are just going after some sirloins, especially in ribeyes and
Yeah. I'll sell out
yeah. It's
ribeyes and
so yeah. So how would you? It's the same thing goes to restaurants. Like if you want to sell to a restaurant, most restaurants are they have a ribeye or a tenderloin. And there's what are you seeing from the restaurant side with people? I'm sure you guys do a good job of
but it's a consumer has to be willing to change. And this is when when people come into our
yeah.
restaurant here on the ranch, I say the menu changes every week based on what we have. So if you don't like it today, come back on Friday, it'll be different. Like literally, like that's my joke, but we have to be flexible. People come in like, well, you have beef curry today and you used to have this lamb curry and it was so delicious. Great. It's going to be similarly delicious with beef. And I bet in the future I will also have lamb again or maybe goat, but it has to ship. You know what I mean? People, but what people want, that Starbucks, we want convenience. We don't want resilience. We want what we want, and we don't care about the impact on other people. Like we say we do, but we don't. I was having this conversation with my
Yeah.
sister-in-law the other day. I bought these shoes. My husband bought them for me for Christmas. I thought that I could wear them. They were too small, but I wore them like, and they, for a day, and I realized that they made my feet bloody. And she was like, "Well, just send them back." And I was like, "I'm not sending them back. They're a $250 pair of shoes. I wore them around the farm. They're no longer new. They cannot sell them. It's my fault. I should have just tried them on the carpet and said they're too small." And she was like, "Well, what, you're just going to keep them?" And I was like, "Well, it's the only thing that has integrity. I decided to wear them outside. They don't fit me. So that's my mistake. This is my mistake." And she was just like, she was like, "Well, I guess we don't want that, but I mean, I would just send them back." But that's our culture. Why should I have to pay for shipping? I tried to order meat on your website and it was $48 for shipping. It was $100 for shipping. Yes, it is. Well,
It's
it's
a lot of
free
weight.
shipping. Everything's free shipping nowadays. Okay, well, I don't know. It's the meat plus the freezer packs, the dry ice, and no, I can't. The shipping is almost as much as you paid for the meat. Like what? I cannot do that. And so we've gotten to this world where we think everything should just be the way it is for the consumer. And I'm not diminishing anybody, the consumer culture. We were all raised in it. We want more, we want faster, we want cheaper, we want all of that. But it costs something to raise an animal. It costs something to raise vegetables. And currently, like the vegetable prices and the meat prices and the vegetable prices are wildly out of range with the effort it takes to do it. I was just like arguing
Yeah.
with an employee the other day, and she's like, "What do you mean food is free?" And I was like, "What do you mean food is free?" "Well, it all just grows." And I was like, "Uh-huh." Like, so I'm like, "So these microgreens right here." And she was like, "Well, right. What does it take to grow them?" And I was like, "Seeds." She said, "You could save your seeds." Okay. So labor. And she's like, "Well, you don't have to pay someone. Your family could do it." Okay. And then water. And she's like, "Well, water is free." And I was like, "Water, do you have wells? You have 3 wells on the property." I was like, "Yeah, it has to be pumped out of the ground, have to pay an annual fee for pumping water out of the ground, and
Or or a very hefty price to put them in.
very hefty price of 50, 60, $100,000 to put them in." And then she's like, "Well, you have solar panels." And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm paying them off after over 10 years at however much. And I'm just like shocked, like literally like mind blown shocked that people are in the mindset of like food is free. I was like, you couldn't grow. I couldn't remember what I was telling her she couldn't grow for 70 cents each or whatever. And I was like, you can't grow that. You cannot grow that for that price. And it's only at scale, at like massive scale, that we can grow stuff at the price that we're paying. And so if you're comparing, uh, let's use my farm that I sold in California. We'll call it Soahart. It's now called Eden Collective or whatever. But so if you're growing over 250 crops like that farm is on 20 acres, and then you're growing a little of this, a little of that, da, 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 your cost to produce that food far exceeds the guy that's just growing Hass avocados, for example, and then just putting out nitrogen fertilizer, just spraying oil on the leaves so you don't get thrips, and just spraying Roundup on the ground twice a year and watering. And that's it. And he has a management company that does it. And they got it on a schedule. And they've got some guy that is spraying those chemicals that is here undocumented. And he will go back to his country and die of some terrible cancer. And nobody will ever hear about it. Uh, but organic food is a privilege for white people. Well, no, cheap food grown by people that don't have a place here, in order for you to have cheap food and then they go home to their country of origin and die of cancer, that's actually a privilege. I'm sorry. Cheap food is the privilege. Organic food is not the privilege. Organic food should be the norm, and cheap food is the privilege. It's a privilege to have food produced in that way, and it's not good for us. So the consumer has to make the change. And then people are going to say, well, Molly, I don't think that people that are in survival can look at the world the way you're looking at the world. Like, I don't think it's fair for you to expect someone who's just migrated here or somebody that's, on welfare and has, no, I disagree. It took me 2 years to get approved by SNAP because so many people that were on welfare wanted to buy my CSA box in California. So many people reached out and said, I'm a single mother and I'm working a part-time job and I get this $480 of SNAP benefits on food stamps, and I really want to be able to buy your farm box. I really want to feed my kids. I know about microbiology. So first I say that. I go through the hoops of trying to get approved by SNAP for years. I finally get approved, and you know what they tell me? You can't take payments over the phone or over the internet. Oh, so it's a food desert. LA sucks. We're racist. There's no food in these neighborhoods because LA sucks. We're racist. It's a food desert. I have a van that drives to every neighborhood of Los Angeles, will drop the box off on her front porch. But I can't take a credit card over the phone. I would need to have a mobile credit card device that can take her credit card in person at the door. Well, why? Because she can pay on Instacart with that card. She can pay Amazon with that card. She can
Yeah.
pay. And so I went through all of that to not even be able to take SNAP benefits, because you could already do it at the farmer's market, because farmer's market has a booth and you actually get double tokens in California. Like, so if you're at the farmer's market and you have $20 on your SNAP card, you could go to this booth. They'll charge your $20 and they'll give you $40 of paper farmer's market money. Then you could come to my booth and buy $40 worth of produce, and I can go back and get $40 from that booth. And so you get double your money if you're buying from local farmers. I actually think that's an awesome program if there's going to be government programs. I'm not big on government programs, but if there's going to be government programs, that's an awesome program it supports. But the fact that you can't buy what she should be able to buy White Oak Pastures beef if she wants to. She should be able to buy Force of Nature beef or your beef or my beef on the internet with that card if what we care about is her feeding her family. If that's really what we care about. But no,
Yeah.
that's not. So I say
That would be something that maybe that's something that RFK looks into.
I think that he should definitely look into it. And the other thing I want to say is that the that's a lie that people that just first come here and start eating our food and or whatever are too desperate or whatever to care about what you eat. My adopted son literally found me because he Googled, can the food in the USA make me sick? Because he got totally sick when he came here from Guatemala. And I ended up adopting him after he came and volunteered at the farm and all this stuff. And I ended up adopting him, right? But that all came from him Googling that he felt terrible when he moved to America.
Yeah.
United States of America. The whole continent is America. My husband corrects me
Well,
every day about that because he's Mexican. So, anyways, I say that we have to shift the consciousness. We have to be willing to pay more for our food, and people don't like that answer. People don't. It's not the convenient answer that people want us to hear. But if we do not want to see the destruction of the small farm, we need to pay more for our food. We need to support agritourism. We need to support more kinds of on-farm ways for revenue to be made, because as of right now, our food system is going in the way of our clothing and everything else, where it's just outsourced to the cheapest hourly wage and the cheapest land mass. And that is not resilient. It is a national security issue for us to be good at growing food here in the United States of America. It is a national security issue. And we cannot just grow cotton, soy, and corn and think that we can feed everybody like that, and cow calf operations. Like, we need more than that. I'm sorry. Carne asada
yeah.
tacos are good, but like,
Amen.
can't be the only thing that we're eating.
Amen. Well, Molly, this has been a fun conversation. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Keep going. I'm sure it's not easy. And if you need anything from us, make sure you let us know. Where can people find out some more information about you, about your farm? How can people connect?
You can find my farm is Sovereignty Ranch. So you can go to the website or on Instagram. We're just Sovereignty Ranch. I'm Chef Mollie on Instagram. You can go to our farm store on that website. You can buy meat boxes, vinegar, barbecue sauce, a bunch of stuff that me and my husband produce. And then the restaurant is Eat at the Barn on Instagram, and you can follow along what we're doing. Um, and we will be here educating and feeding the community. And that's what I'm led to do. There's much easier ways to make money, believe me. Um, and I am choosing this because I think that soil is foundationally the most important thing to all of humanity. And so I am here for all of us.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you. Keep up the good work, and you'll probably see more of Mollie down the line here with Acres.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mollie. Thank you for listening to the Acres USA podcast, a podcast production of Acres USA. Find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and other popular podcast platforms. Acres USA is North America's oldest publisher on production-scale organic and regenerative farming. For more than 50 years, our mission has been to help farmers, ranchers, and market gardeners grow food profitably, regeneratively, and with nature in mind. Find our books and other Acres USA media and learn about Acres USA events at acresusa.com. Read our online magazine at members.acresusa.com, and we'd like to thank Acres USA staff for their contributions to producing this podcast. This episode was edited and engineered by Weston Larson of Acres USA. We're grateful to our guests for taking the time to talk with us about their experiences.